introducing Dr. Dianne Kipnes, who is your keynote speaker today. She's a psychologist and a retired social worker with a private practice in Edmonton. She and her husband Irving are principals in the Dianne and Irving Kipnes Foundation. We know them as extremely generous members of our community. Among their many interests, they have made substantial gifts to the Cross Cancer Institute, the Alberta School of Business, and the Kipnes Centre for Veterans. Dr. Kipnes received an Alberta Centennial Medal in 2006. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Dianne Kipnes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a privilege for me to speak to you today. After hearing stories from students such as Rose and Gerard, it makes me appreciate even more the luxury of living in a free country such as Canada. Many Norquest students have experienced hardships and repressions, which most of us could never even imagine. When Janice approached me about the Norquest campaign of 1,000 women, and the purpose to which the money was to be used, it felt to me that my life had come full circle. I now had a chance, at a different level, to put into effect some lessons I learned early in my career. I worked as a child protection worker in Toronto many years ago. I was young, I had a university degree, and very little experience. I worked with intransigent families in a very poor area. The cycle of poverty and illiteracy was sometimes overwhelming. My job was to keep children in their homes, but often it did not turn out that way. The family that taught me so much consisted of 2 adults and 5 children, under 5 years of age, who lived in one darkened room. The only light came from a small black and white television set in the corner of the room. The place was filthy. The family never left the room, and I doubt the smallest child ever left the confines of her crib. 5 older children from this marriage were permanently in the care of Children's Aid, and I thought that soon there would be another 5. Needless to say, the family was exceedingly hostile to my presence. And although I wanted to help, I had little faith that anything I could do would be very useful. I would visit and drink coffee with the family, but only the mother would talk to me, and not often. I often thought of the incongruity of my life and that of the family. I could bounce in full of energy and life every week, and then leave. But they were stuck in a cycle of hopelessness. Until one day, after months of visiting, I noticed that the mother had tied a scraggly piece of dirty blue ribbon in her hair. It was the first sign I had seen of identification with me or self-care by anyone in the family. And with that small symbol, I knew that there was hope. The family changed. The mother would walk to daycare every single day with 5 small children clinging to the sides of an old broken-down stroller. She did not have more children. Her home was cleaner. She volunteered in the public library for many years afterwards as she gave what she could back to her community. Because of the mother, the father and the children also changed. As is always the case when you're involved in helping others, I learned much more from this family than I gave. But there were 3 lessons that I've never forgotten, which I try to remember both in my personal as well as my professional life. They are, number 1, never underestimate the power of your engagement with another human being, no matter how insignificant you think it may be. Number 2, never underestimate the power of hope. It is such a necessary part of our psyche. And 3, never forget that women are powerful agents of change. We know in this community about helping others. This event, for example, was sold out early. We only have to look around the room to see the level of brain power, accomplishment, and eagerness to help from women in this community. For most people here, this is only one of a number of causes with which they're involved at a significant level. We know in this community about hope. We take it for granted because we have such power from birth. We are born believing that choices are a part of our lives. Even when the situation appears impossible, we know at some level that when we are ready, we can change, and there are people available to help with that process. But it is the last topic I want to address today, and that is women as agents of change, in particular as philanthropists. We as women have always been involved in helping others. We have helped feed and clothe the poor, helped care for wounded soldiers during times of war. Early interventions with the poor were often the job of women's church groups and other organizations. Women have traditionally supported their husbands' philanthropic endeavors or acted to distribute their family's wealth. Over time, the increased philanthropic endeavors of women led to involvement in civic issues and helped build social connections. The impact of these interventions have shaped the norms of society. So what is different now? Why are women as philanthropists becoming such a hot topic and headlining philanthropy seminars? Have we changed, and why? We know that women have always given, so why are we even talking about it? One of the major forces believed to account for part of this attention is the financial status of women. Today, we represent more than half of the workforce. We are increasingly wealthy. We own 43% of stock portfolios with values over $50,000 and 45% of investments in other markets. Women own a third of America's private businesses and currently control more than 51% of the wealth in the United States. I'm not sure what the figures are in Canada, but I suspect that they are similar. This wealth is expected to rise, and current projections are that very soon, 70% of the nation's wealth will be controlled by women. As well, 85 to 90% of families cite women as the ones in charge of family finances. Women choose their charities differently than men. A great proportion of the women surveyed cited the charity's mission and efficiency as key factors in their giving decisions. More than most wanted to find an emotional connection to the charities they supported, and more of the participants wanted the organization to keep them informed about its activities. This gives credence to the belief that women more frequently will get involved with an organization before making a gift, and women want to see change in the organizations they support. Their preference is for innovative programs that help to change social situations. But recent studies suggest that as the wealth of women rises, their giving patterns tend to mimic those of men. In fact, their giving is more directed to the established charities rather than the upstarts. But the increasing financial power of women has encouraged them to play major roles in foundations and boards, as well as direct fundraising activities. In 1979, there were only 5 charitable funds that were established and run entirely by women. In 1999, there were nearly 100. Today, it would be much larger. It is predicted that in the next 5 years, women will take more top philanthropic leadership positions, will direct more corporate giving campaigns, will grow political groups, and take greater control of their own resources. Women will give increasingly large philanthropic gifts and will insist on playing a greater role in the direction of philanthropic funds. I am telling you this only to emphasize the increasingly important role women play not only in the time and energy of philanthropy, but in the role we have to play in the financial sector, and the important role that all of you play here today. Your presence attests to the support of students who are undergoing tremendous hardships in order to be better citizens and to offer their children a different life. In spite of financial difficulties, they speak of their gratitude in being able, through hard work, to change their future. What you and I are doing here today is paying it forward, an expression I heard the Honorable Dave Hancock use in a recent speech. I thought it aptly described your investments in the students here today and in the future of our city. I am proud to be a donor in this campaign. I am proud to be among you, such a group of amazing people who care so much for our community. Being able, in some small way, to support the dreams of others, especially those who truly appreciate the opportunities I have had since birth, is an honor. Thank you all very much for your attention.